Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here again. This talk has not been really prepared. It is a quick documentation of a hack dating back to yesterday morning, which is the solution to a problem which is only slightly older. I would like to use the projector. Yeah, good. So, the practical impulse justifying this little work comes from the collaboration between Jose Marchesi, that you know very well, who wrote Poke, and me, who wrote Jitter. As you know, Poke uses Jitter. So you can say that Jitter is a dependency of Poke. Poke has a compiler. Actually, you can call it a JIT, a compiler which works at runtime. And that compiler relies on a VM generated ahead of time by Jitter, which is a code generator. Okay, so Jitter generates some piece of C code, which is compiled, and then Jose's program generates VM instructions for. So Jitter is a little inconvenient to install as a dependency because it's a new project. Not many people know it and use it, and it will probably change a lot in a short time. I'm also submitting it to GNU. So instead of having people install a version of Jitter which will get old quickly and it will become useless, Jose's idea is to distribute Jitter as part of Poke in a subdirectory, exactly as you do with GNU-lib. And this is a very good idea, particularly because if you only use one VM with one program, you don't need to keep the generator and runtime library around. The GNU-lib style with just one static library to linked into the executable, and then everything else deleted along with the sources is correct here. We would like to do that. So I want to do a sub-project or sub-repository, Jitter contained in Poke. How do you do this with the autotools? Raise your hand, please, if you are an expert in the autotools. I'm not. It's kinda. Okay, and there are some modest people I know, but in practice are experts. Yeah, and there as well, I guess. Okay, so you can probably give me some interesting feedback. Now, I will not use exactly Jitter as an example because there are a lot of side complications which are not central to the main message here. Instead, I will elaborate upon an example provided by the Automake manual, which is very good. In the Automake manual, you have ARM, which is a program, depending on hand, which is a library. And ARM contains hand as a directory. Okay? Both use the autotools in a canonical way. And the Automake manual contains configure.ac and automake.am for both. I wrote a little about, I wrote the rest of the package and modified a few minor things. So I will show you my ARM. So this is ARM. After you call automake and autoconf to generate some machine-generated things. I can use ARM in a pretty ordinary way. But of course, I like to build in a separate directory, as real users do. So let's go to my underscore build directory. I will even clean it up for you. I will start from a fresh directory. This is an alias of mine, don't worry. Okay, so now I will configure from this directory and I will ask for help. This is exactly what you expect. Now there is one surprising thing. Let me see if it is actually there. No, it is not there. I have to say help equal recursive, I think. Yes, and now it is. So if I ask for a recursive help to configure, it also shows me the options taken by the configure in the subdirectory. Okay, so now I've used arms configure, but I'm also asking help about hands configure, right? Whenever I pass an option to an outer configuration script, this option is relied, unchanged, to the subdirectory configure. So I can show you if you don't believe me. can go to the superior directory, which is ARM, okay? That contains hand, and that has its own configure, and I will do minus minus help there. So you can see that there is an option, enable fingers, with fingers. With fingers? I think I made my fault. Yeah, bug. Yeah, it's enable finger. Sorry, the help is wrong. This should be enable. My fault. Don't look at that. So, if I want to make a hand with 6 fingers, I can configure the hand, but I can also directly configure the arm and give the option about fingers to the arm. The arm will not understand the option, but it will pass it as is to the hand with sub-project, okay, blindly, without understanding it. This is kind of useful, and it is used in several packages, particularly by Microsoft. Yeah, and it's a nice style.
And this is here as well.
So if a project includes sub-projects with their configured scripts, you can configure only the top one, and the others inherit the options. Now, let's do it for real. // configure / enable fingers. Of course, there is a default, which is 5, but let's go with 6. Now, let's have a quick look. This is an echo command I added myself. It does check for some basic compiler features, and then it recurses into the hand subdirectory. You see? It goes into the build subdirectory, which contains hand, and configures again. So it configures from the source subdirectory into a new build subdirectory. Okay? There are related hierarchies in the build and the source directories. And so this is the hand configure, which is similar. It checks for a compiler, nothing fancy. You want to see the program run? As I promised, the program, the ARM program is a program, and the hand library is a library. The library only contains a function which serves to hand wave a given number of fingers. And ARM doesn't do anything particularly exciting. It prints a message and hand waves. Right? This function comes from the library. If I look at the hand, of course there is a header as well, but I'm not interested, so I will just show you this. And hand waves will print this number, which comes from configure. Okay? Very easy. Now, how did I do the nesting? This is implemented in a pretty natural way according to the autotools. It is explained very well here in the automake manual. You have to use AC config subdirs in configure. Now, I will show you the configure script as it is. So it is in the ARM directory. I have my configure.ac. And here it is. You see my echo for debugging. And the only interesting thing I did is this one. I said AC config subdirs. So the subdir hand, the brackets are just M4 quotation. If you don't know about this, ignore the brackets. I just say there is another configure script in the hand subdirectory. If I do this, everything works by magic. And it works very well. It is actually impressive. I can even make dist, which will build an ARM installable tarball, which also contains hand. And that is also packaged correctly, all for free. It's pretty impressive, actually. Even this check works.
This check works too?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, there is no test suite yet. Yeah, but it works. Yeah, it works. Okay. Awesome. And if you uncompress this, you will find hand inside. Yeah. So let's configure again. What can you notice here about the order things are run in? I start with ARM. Look at my prints. I do some things. At the very end, I create config status, make file, def file commands, and then I start configuring hand. Then hand ends, and then arm ends. Is it good? Is it what we want? Does it work in this example? What do you think?
Well, it does.
In this example, it works pretty well.
Yeah.
Because my hand library only has a function with no parameters depending on a configuration parameter of its own. So if a hand has been correctly configured, it will be hand waving with the correct number of fingers. That is perfect. Okay? So what package depends on the other at build time? Let's think of arm and hand. Tell me.
Well, the arm depends on the hand.
The arm depends on the hand, correct.
Yeah.
And at configuration time, this is more subtle.
The hand depends on the arm for the value of the constant.
Yes, because I configured by passing the option recursively
Right.
automatically. But that is just a convenience because I could have configured hand separately and installed it. It would have worked perfectly.
Well, the arm relies on the hand to be configured.
Really? Not at all. It could have been
The arm.
it could have been installed and I could even have deleted the source. Okay, I have to install a header, just that. I have to install a hand header in order to compile ARM, and that's it. The configuration don't interact at all. It may
Okay, you don't need, the arm doesn't need the hand to be configured.
Right.
It just needs to trigger it somehow, but it does, there is not a dependency. There is nothing that you get from the arm in the hand configured. Yeah, the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say that one of the two could not use autocomfort to make, and they would interact the same way all the time.
Right.
So how does information flow between ARM and hand at configuration time? So which configure passes information to the other?
Well, the arm to the hand.
Yes. Everybody agrees? And what kind of information does it pass?
The number of fingers.
That is a way of saying it. A better way of saying it is whatever it receives from the outside. And it
Okay,
passes
yeah.
as is
Blindly.
without understanding.
Blindly, yeah, right. Yeah.
Blindly.
Yeah.
And this is central.
That is more correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So ARM here, the ARM's configure, cannot do any decision and pass it to the other configure.
Okay.
It can only pass exactly what it receives.
Okay.
So it is not very flexible. Okay? Here, I say config subdirs, and this means call configure with the same option I got, and at which point configure is called. Don't answer because you know, other people don't. When is configure invoked within the execution of this script? Let's look at the manual. So let's see AC config subdirs. AC config subdirs makes AC output run configure in each subdirectory passed as a parameter. So it is only at AC output time that you get the recursive invocation of configure. So you get it in a sense as late as possible. Okay? This is bad. This is very bad. It works in the hand case because the information flows is trivial and blind with no interpretation. But there is also another problem. It is only one directional. It goes from arm to hand. And that's it. It never flows back. So hand is not free to pass any information back to hand, back to arm, sorry. Okay? The inner package gets configured, but nothing which is computed is given back to the outer package. Okay? Because I do this at the end, right here. Here the configuration is called.
And that is too late.
And that is too late. Because even if I did something intelligent here, I could not use it because the configuration would be executed after, right? So so this default is, okay, useful, you can do some things, but it's absolutely not what I want.
So what would be the scenario? Would be that we need a value, let's say, that is the result of configuring hand.
I am getting there.
Yeah.
So why am I doing this exercise? Jose would like to distribute jitter within poke. Now, jitter is relatively complicated, the configuration time. For example, some decisions depend on the architecture, okay? Some hardware architectures are supported better than others. And so, jitter needs to be configured, and poke needs to be configured according to the result of jitter's configuration. So there is this back information flow from the inner project to the outer project that is not implemented here, but that Jose needs, for a very good reason. Okay? So I want to help him and other jitter users. I will give you, it may feel artificial like this, you're right. Let me give you a concrete example, okay? I will add some paths to my shell, okay? I do cross configuration a lot, so my configuration is complicated, ignore this. Now, I will show you jitter config. Jitter config is a script generated by jitter's configure, which is also installed, and this is useful, for example, for computing stuff like this. These are the flags I need to compile a VM generated by jitter, okay? And I also have C flags with some models. Jitter can be picky about this because some compilation modes interact badly with GCC optimizations, so we have to be very careful. And GCC and Jitter's configure does a good job of finding the good options. But now, how does a jitter using program know which options it should use? It should ask jitter config. But jitter config is not installed. You have to configure jitter before. Too late.
Too late.
You see?
Well, right now I call in poke, I rely on an installed jitter.
Yeah.
So then my AC local gets some mem4 macros from jitter, and including it's a macro is called AC jitter, which does.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
so no, don't worry. The macro Jose is talking about is a friendly autoconf macro which calls jitter config and defines substitutions and variables. So you don't need to see all of this. It becomes extremely easy to use because you have this macro which calls jitter config with the right parameters. Anyway, this relies on a configured and installed jitter, and this will have to change. Okay, I didn't want to show you these details because it's complicated. We can go with hand and arm.
We can deal with complicated stuff. So.
Yeah, well, you can? Yeah, good.
I hope so.
Yeah, you can.
No,
people will never seen it. Good. So, I decided to find a hack to configure in the opposite order. Okay, I want to configure the subdirectory before I finish with the superdirectory. I have the sources here. Git checkout master, just to see the name of the second revision. I'm sorry, I'm not a Git master. Okay, so this is the second version. I will show you the new configure. This is the new configure. Now, instead of the simple call to AC config subdirs, I wrote this. What did I do? Well, I looked at the shell expansion of AC config subdirs from autoconf into configure, and I saw that it uses some shell variables, which are AC config files and subdirs. This is just a sequence of strings, a string of strings separated by spaces, which keeps track of which configuration files will need to be generated and which subdirectories will need to be examined by recursion. So what do? I keep a copy in a variable of mine of the current value. Then I clean up, destroying the current value. I do config subdirs by adding only the one subdirectory I want to add. I do some feedback, and I do AC output right now. So I force configure to run now. This has an ugly side effect. It generates a config status, so I remove it. Okay, because I don't want to generate it twice. I want the user, if he forgets to call AC output later, not to get a config status. Some feedback, and then what I do, I restore my backups. And this is very important because AC config files and subdirs must not include my subdirectory. Otherwise, when I call AC output at the end, it reconfigures the subdirectory another time, and I don't want that. I wanted to do it before, but only once. Okay? Notice that by choice, by arbitrary choice, I put this code, my little hack, very early, even before init make and proxy C. So even before checking if a compiler is there, I do my recursive hack. And it works. If I could put it here, it works. I can put it below and it still works. So this looks promising. Let me reconfigure, let me regenerate the machine-generated things. So and for each directory between ARM and hand, I will do an autoreconf -E. This will generate configure and make file.in. And it works. Now, I will reconfigure the ARM from its build directory and passing an option to hands configure. Let's do it different so we are sure that it's, so let's have 4 fingers now. What did you notice now? Now, very early, it records the into hand. It did its thing. Notice that it did not compile, it only configured, which is correct. Then hand terminated, and we went back to ARM, which is perfect. Make. Let's see if we have a 6-finger salute. No, it was 4, yeah. 4, good, works. Awesome. Do you like this? Will you use it? The problem is that it's very ugly, right?
Well, it can break, right, if autoconf changes.
Yes, this is a problem, and this is one reason why I would like to contact the autoconf maintainers to make this kind of solution official.
What about to add a new macro like AC configs and subdirs now, for example, and then to add it to autoconf?
Did I show you?
Ah. Okay, well, I promise I didn't know about this.
So the point is that this is essentially shell code with a parameter, so it can be very easily abstracted into a macro. And what we really want is a new autoconf macro in order to, which behaves like AC config subdirs, with the difference that it has to configure exactly now. Okay? So I call it AC config subdirs now, and it gets a parameter. Of course, this is right now. You will find it defined here, just for simplicity. But in production, I will put in the jitter file containing autoconf definitions. Okay. So you will get it for free.
So you put it in jitter?
Yeah. Ideally, I would like the autoconf people to distribute something like that, but I need their opinion and permission.
But then, in that case, should we use, John, you maybe know this,
should
we use a different prefix for the macro?
I wrote with another name for this reason. Yeah.
You can, if not with autoconf, you can always send it, put it in the autoconf archive, which is just a bunch of user-submitted macros.
I would like to show this idea to the autoconf people and see if they can make it official. Maybe with a different implementation, I don't know. So the final demo is exactly what you expect. I will check out the most recent version, and I will show you the new configure. Now there is a macro definition, which will not be in this file in production. It will be in jitter. And this is how you configure your subdirectory.
Very nice.
And this is it. Now, here, within everything that separates the the line following AC config subdirs now and AC output, I can do my tests using the result of the configuration of hand, which is exactly what poke needs to do with jitter.
But then in my case, I would need to do first an AC config subdirs now of jitter, and then to call AC jitter.
No, in your case, it would be only one macro for simplicity. You would say,
I'll do both.
yeah,
Okay.
it's easier. Because if you use jitter as a sub-package, you always need to do that. So you will call AC jitter subdirectory, something like that.
Okay.
It's much easier. I can auto-generate files.
Early, yeah.
What did you say earlier? Oh, maybe you're speaking about GNU-lib. Yes, GNU-lib, thank you. GNU-lib is an obvious inspiration for this, and the GL_early macro from GNU-lib does something similar to this, but it does it in a very structured M4 heavy way. Notice that even the definition of GL early is machine generated because it depends on which GNU-lib modules you're importing. My case is much simpler, even if I have to execute a big, relatively big configure file from jitter. So I prefer to just do recursion in well, before the usual time. Okay, so I will configure with 9 fingers per hand, make and wave. And here we are, 9-finger wave. This is a macro definition. Now, there is a little optimization that maybe is not in the source version you saw. Instead of using AC output and then removing config status, I can use an undocumented subroutine of AC output which only does the recursion part. Well, I should be careful by using undocumented stuff. I'm already doing it too much. So this decision should be up to the autoconf maintainers. Now, if the autoconf maintainers don't like my idea, I will do my hack and distribute it for jitter. Okay? And you will still be able to reuse it if you want. Thank you. I'm not an expert in the autotools at all. So if somebody knowing more than me has anything interesting to say, I am willing to listen to you.
How to make sure that it is made in a way that it is AC output that recursors. There should be a reason for that. I mean, is any other code in autoconf relying on that fact?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Along with the shell variables I touched, shell variables, AC config files and subdirs, there's also an M4 variable. And the M4 variable, of course, is defined at the code generation time. Okay? So when you build configure, there is a constant. There is a non-constant. And there is a restriction because of that. And the AC config subdirs, the original version, and mine as well as an effect, needs to be called with a literal. This cannot be a complicated expression. It needs to be a literal because at code generation time, you need to know what subdirectories there are. Okay? And it kind of makes sense. So I have the same restriction in my AC config subdirs now. But other than that, maybe they didn't think about the problem. So the ARM hand example is perfectly correct. And the automake manual doesn't say anything wrong. We could say more. And say that the style of embedding that is advertised in the autotools manual works when there is no functional dependency between the two configures. If there is, you have trouble, and you have to solve it in some kind of way like this. Did I overflow my time? No? Anything else? Do you think you will use this? Yeah?
I will.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mente now, eh? So there's one thing I wanted to say apropos of that, which didn't quite